Yes, that's fine. Thank you. All my camera. And all the thank you guys. Around to the middle here. Wonderful.
Okay, closer together, please. Very close. Patricia?
Down to the corner once more.
This way, all of you.
Good now.
Look here to the corner, please. To the corner.
Okay, now.
Back to the corner, please. Hello. Please to the corner.
This way, yes, please.
Please to the corner.
Hello.
Patricia,
Completely turn off the left side, please. Move to the left, please. More. No, sorry. Closer. Look.
And just down that corner again, guys. Just down to the centre here.
And to the center.
Oh, just down to the
And please turn.
down to the cheeks. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that's good.
No, stop.
Can you look, please?
And just down to the left again, guys.
Hey, can you look over here? Straight ahead. Thank you.
Please.
Ellar, Lorelei.
Okay, Patricia, put it on your left. Look at on your left side, please. Okay.
Yeah. Left side is good. Doesn't go so far.
1 second. Over here, guys.
The cowboy. Big smile, Patricia. Big smile.
And then, guys, just down to the corner here. Just down to this one here.
Could you look up, please?
And all the way over here, please.
Over here. You're right.
Down the first row, please.
You're right. Big love to your right. With your eyes, please.
One more time. Come a step further with one.
And the other way. Take your left side. This, Patricia. Okay, and the left.
On your right, Patricia. Patricia, over here.
Look at your left side, please. And just down to here.
One more time, Patricia.
One more on your left side, please. 1 second to the left. One. Let's bring your eyes over here, please.
Here, please. Front row, please.
One more left.
Front row, please.
Left, please.
On your left
One
side,
more
please.
time. Patricia. One more time, left, please.
Okay, look on your left side, please.
Over your shoulder. Patricia, over your shoulder. Over your left shoulder.
Over your left shoulder, please.
Patricia. Over here.
To the corner, please.
Back to me, Patricia. Patricia. Doch, wir haben noch ein Foto hier.
Okay.
Thank you. Das ist uns hier. Fotos.
Thank you, please, sir.
And then this one here, please. This one here, please.
Sir, could you look over here, please?
And look at him. Look at me, please. Look at me. And here, please. Looking up, Patricia, please. Looking up.
Okay, come this way. Okay, this way. Over here, please. Could you look up, please, sir? Yep. Yes, please, down first one. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Here up.
Stop here. Could you stand on the left? One left. Yes, sir. Once again. Once again. Perfect. Okay, guys, and just working your way back. Left one again on your left. Boy. Just down to here, please, guys. And smile, please. Smile in here. Yeah. Lovely.
And one last time over here, please.
Look at your left side, please. Look at your left side. Okay, again on the left side, please.
Okay, to your right, please. One by one. Pause, please, to your right. And a singer, please. Over here, please. Over here, to your right side. To your right side, please. To your right side. He is singing. You don't have any fun.
Okay.
Okay, one by one.
Singer. Okay, and start on the left side.
Richard.
So, could you please sit down so we can start the press conference? Können Sie sich bitte setzen, damit wir mit der Pressekonferenz beginnen können? Maybe if there's a question in German, you can put it on, but usually it's in English. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this press conference screening in competition on the 64th International Film Festival in Berlin. Have a welcome for Boyhood, and please welcome the producer, Cathleen Sutherland. Growing up as Mason, please welcome Ellar Coltrane. Taking good care for such a long time. Good to have you back here in Berlin. Please welcome Patricia, Arquette. And playing the part of Samantha, Mason's sister, please have a welcome for Lorelei Linklater. Yeah, just 1 year ago he was here, and he's back here. Please have a welcome for Richard Linklater. Maybe, Richard, before we pose the questions to the press, just one little glimpse. Can you remember exactly the first day of shooting 12 years ago?
Absolutely. July of 2002. Yeah, we started production on this over 4,200 days ago. So, but I still remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very clearly. What the hell are we getting ourselves into? But okay.
Yeah, good to have you here now. So, first question, please. Yes, could you please stand up? Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, especially Richard Linklater, could you elaborate on the script writing, or in this case, more to say the planning, planning ahead, and how you struck that balance between portraying normality and nonetheless making it special on a cinema screen, and how you tell a normal life, basically. And what do you think about telling a normal life in cinema means?
Well, to answer the first part of the question, I mean, I had kind of the architecture of the whole piece in mind, but then every year we got this gestation period of a year to think about each segment, each year. We didn't film every year. You know, sometimes it was 18 months, sometimes it was 9 months, but roughly once a year. So it was great to have that time to think about it. But I was never going for, you mentioned normality. That's what I wanted to show, just kind of a normal, it wasn't an extraordinary family, it was kind of a normal family. And I didn't want to show, you know, the biggest moments, you know, that we've seen, I guess, in every movie about, you know, maturing. You know, I avoided the first kiss and all that. You know, I just wanted to kind of capture little moments, I guess. But I had faith that it would all add up, because we had this time element, because of the structure of it, that it would have a cumulative effect, would play out over the time. So that's really what it was all based on, more than the events, you know, of the film. But not that they weren't very important. You know, we worked on them, and it was a lot of work. But
Next question in the back, please.
Hi, my question is for the director. The soundtrack, all the songs in the movies, in the film, it's amazing, and it's really incredible how some songs help punctuate certain periods of time. So I was wondering, how was the process of selecting the songs?
Well, it's very specific to these years, to the stages the kids are growing up, but a lot of it was the perspective of who's listening to the music. Like sometimes it would be, you know, Olivia's perspective, or Mason Senior's, or, you know, if we're in Samantha's room, it would be something she's listening to. Hopefully, if it's 2007, you know, it's that year, maybe something they would be listening to. So it was fun. It was just fun to kind of be playing off the culture at that very moment as much as possible, and to stay in character. I think Ellar and Lorelei's tastes weren't the tastes of their characters. Those are characters who aren't them necessarily, you know. So, but that was the fun part, kind of mixing in the music and to our story. So.
Okay. Question on the left, on the back. Oh no. Where's the microphone?
Here.
Yeah, please.
My name is Dana Grigorcea from the Romanian television. I have a question for Mr. Linklater. So you filmed over many years, but only for short periods. What did you say to your actors? Dye your hair, cut your hair, gain weight, lose weight, or you just took them as they were? And I have also a question for the actors. So you played over the years. You see now a film with you, how you were 10 years ago, how you became now. So with what was the experience of making this film, and with what feeling do you look at the film? And also a question for Mrs. Sutherland. What were the risks? Did you consider the risks of such a project? Thank you.
Okay, I think I remember your first question. It was about, I didn't tell the actors too much about what to do with their lives in those 51 weeks a year we weren't shooting. But Ellar would call me sometimes when he was thinking about cutting his hair or getting an earring or something. He would ask, can I do that this year or something? So we were conscious of it, but I knew that, you know, it would develop normally and we would work with whatever was happening in front of us. So I don't remember being too proactive. The only year was when he got the haircut. That was a big story point, so he had to not cut his hair leading up to that, which in fact he wasn't angry to get his hair cut at all that day. But he acted like it was. So, I think that's my question. It's to the cast.
The risk?
Okay.
The cast.
The cast.
What it was like to see yourself. Ellar, you want to?
What it was like to see myself?
Because I never let them watch. No one ever saw footage until just recently they started watching the movies.
Which I'm very grateful for. I avoided being very self-conscious, and it's very likely that I might have become self-conscious if I had been allowed to watch any of it growing up. I mean, it was a lot to deal with watching it 2 months ago, and very cathartic and emotional, and I can't imagine how difficult it would have been at 10 years old to see that much of myself. But it's beautiful, in short. What about you, Lorelei?
Well, I'd say it was really, really strange experience to watch that. Honestly, quite painful at some times. I mean, who wants to watch themselves go through all these awkward stages? I mean, it was hard. I was crying for a little while there, but
several hours of despair.
This is a unique thing. I mean, I don't know if two actors have ever been in this position ever in a narrative, you know, and Patricia and Ethan, but it's not as pronounced as young people growing up on camera in a narrative. So
no, Ethan and I just got old.
Yeah, you just got older.
We were young, we got old, and they were young. And
they got to grow up.
Yeah.
The rest of us get to age, you know.
But I think that was part of what we also recognized as exciting when we thought of this, you know. And Rick was very clear, like, you can't get any facial reconstruction and you know, anything like that. Right?
Sorry.
I'm like, okay.
Your character wouldn't do that.
You wouldn't suddenly, you know, be 15 years younger by the end of the movie. So, yeah, but it's very strange. But life goes fast. And I think that's part of what the movie, you feel. It's how fast this life goes.
I think from a producer's standpoint, the biggest risk that was taken for this film was actually Jonathan Saring at IFC and agreeing to give us the money to begin with. I mean, we had a very small production budget which we got annually, and I'd say the second risk was the one I felt every year signing that contract that I was going to make this happen for $200,000. So, yeah. But thank you, Jonathan, for, you know, believing in the project. And the other thing, I mean, a project this long is that you kind of say a lot of prayers that everything goes smoothly. I mean, you know.
This whole thing was a leap of faith and a certain amount of optimism about the future. Just that we would be here 12 years from now, that, you know, things would work out. So it was a, you know, it was a leap of faith on everyone's part. You know, it's against the law to even, you can't contract someone to do anything over 7 years, and much less a kid, if you think about it. You know, getting a 6-year-old to agree to do something for 12 years. It's, I mean, that's technically illegal, I think. So. But Ellar has very cool parents, I can say that. Lorelei's parents, I'm not so sure about.
Yes?
Kerstin Hild from DWTV. I would like to know from Ellar Coltrane what you experienced as a child and as a teenager during shooting. Like, maybe it was a big adventure in the beginning, but when you were 12 or 13, were there any points in time when you said, oh no, I don't want to continue shooting, or where it was really uncool to do this thing? And how did Richard Linklater made you carry on? Like, how did it change your childhood in the end?
Not at all. If almost the opposite. I think there was a point around 12 or 13 when I kind of fell in love with the project, and just the process, the artistic process of creating something like this, and just how lucky I am to have been a part of it and gotten to work with these people and have this incredible family that has, you know, raised me for a week out of the year each year. But they're incredible people, and it was an incredible process that I fell in love with at a certain point, and that's what I'm attracted to, I guess.
I think also it was kind of a blessing that we got to see, you know, these kids growing up, but they didn't have to get the brutal, strange experience in their real life of being actors, young actors.
Yeah,
because then your friends get jealous and they get weird and they think you think you're so cool because you're in a movie, and meanwhile these guys are making a movie. But it's like, oh really? You're making a movie? Where's the movie you're making? Sure, you're making a movie, another movie, okay. But you don't have to deal with kind of what that triggers in everyone else, which is very weird. So they got to get the good part of creative part of it without the weird part of everyone else's crap.
Yeah, it had to be a different experience at different times, I would think. There was a second there, Laura. Do you want to take it?
1 year I asked him if my character could die.
It was the Harry Potter year. He didn't want to dress up.
I just couldn't handle it.
Nothing against
him. McGonagall costume.
I was like, no, that would be too dramatic for the movie. It doesn't. It's not that kind of movie. We got through it.
Your question, please.
Alexander Rudkovsky, Ukraine, 2 millennia weekly. It's a beautiful, wonderful film, a wonder-like film for Berlinale, I think. Because as to me, it seems that your film has made Berlinale the festival this year. It seems to me, and I can forecast for you a glorious evening in a day. I'm sure. But the question, your really enigmatic, masterful technique in correlation between documentary, natural elements of your film and artistic play. The question is rather concrete. Within one scene, what was your 3 should be done and should not? In order to compare this balance between documentary nature of your actors, not actors, personages, and your artistic involvement in action. 3 forbidden topics and 3 desired. Thank you much.
Forbidden topics? You mean, I don't understand the question entirely. About, do you get it?
I think he was saying like your balance between the natural and the creative, but what 3 things were you
trying? I mean, the film was trying to be very realistic. It's all scripted and rehearsed, and you know, films are constructs, let's face it. takes a lot of effort, a lot of work goes on to make it. But the tone of the film, I was trying to capture just the way life kind of unfolds, or maybe how you remember your life, or the way time works, you know, through our lives. So that's what I was trying to capture in a not too dramatic way. But like I said earlier, I felt there would be a cumulative power to the drama when you think about your own life, how there is this kind of build, and it becomes a drama in our minds. So even what happens on the screen isn't that dramatic. And it is at times, just like our own lives, you know. There are these sudden bursts of trauma, but it's not the norm. Even though so many movies, that's all they are. But I was trying to capture what most of our lives are like, I guess. So, but there were no subjects I was trying to avoid. I mean, there was nothing.
But like you didn't want to see the first time he had sex or the.
Well, I didn't want to see things I think I'd seen a lot in other movies. You know, you lose your virginity, you first kiss, all the, you know, I don't know. That wasn't this movie. It was kind of conscious to just move on and just pick up with the characters at a new level very subtly. The transitions were very important between the segments. I think spent a lot of time thinking about those. So I think you imply a lot. Like these, I want your relation to them to be like close friends, but not so intimate, you know, everything. You know, someone you're close with. I think that's a good relation with the characters.
I feel like also for me as a viewer, I felt like after watching the movie that while it's normal and it's real life, also these two kids are unique individuals and have their own perspective, and we get that reveal test. But I just also wanted to say as a film goer and that I think this movie really only could have been made this way by Rick and his unique sensibility of filmmaking, and I feel like he has a really original voice in film and a really incredible voice in film, and I think very few, certainly American directors have that. And, I think that balance is Rick, all Rick. Really.
Your question here in the middle, please. Yeah, it's your question. No, his with the microphone. Yeah. Yeah, you've got the microphone. Could you please stand up? Thank you.
Thanks. Hello, I'm Kasper from Denmark, and I'm a huge fan of your work. I think I would like to congratulate you on this film. I think it's a perfect film. So, for the question, upcoming projects. I was thinking this project is like a really big undertaking, and I'm thinking, would you consider doing something like this again? Maybe with continuing this project or with other characters like Jesse and Celine, perhaps? Thanks.
I think it's a logical question, because now that this format, yeah, you could continue, but the story I was trying to tell was this point of childhood in the U.S. It's like 1st through 12th grade. Those 12 years, you're kind of stuck in the public school system, and you're stuck in your parents' house. I look back at my own youth, and that was kind of the prison sentence you've been handed as a youth. So it was how to negotiate through that. Beyond that, I didn't really have anything more to express about this. That doesn't mean we couldn't pick up in young adulthood and go forever, you know. So who knows? But we haven't talked about it. We're still kind of recovering from this. So every movie sort of continues forever, I guess, like a line, you know. But
I think also you still have a lot of major lifting to do here.
Yeah,
it still has to come out in the press and.
But I'll leave that maybe to someone else could pick up and tell a story. Good luck getting it financed and having the patience. But
Okay, here in front, please.
Claudia Schulmerich, Frankfurt. Sie machen ja filmisch.
Make film.
Gut, ich warte, ja. Also Sie machen eine filmische Kulturgeschichte.
Have a kind of
Das ist wirklich etwas
history
Neues
of culture
im
in film. That is something that is new in film. And I would like to know from you. You said that you had the concept at the beginning. So what did you change during the course of shooting throughout these years? Why is it a boyhood and not a girlhood. That could have been also a conscious decision on your part.
ländliche Amerika
And
ist auch
then
eine
rural
Entscheidung
America,
von Ihnen. Ich frage
that was
deshalb,
also a
wir
conscious
in den
decision
letzten
on your
Jahren
part,
lernen nicht Amerika
because
kennen durch
I
amerikanische
have
Filme,
been
weil auf einmal das
getting to know
ländliche
more
Amerika
about the
Thema
rural
ist.
America
Und als
through
letztes,
American
wie haben
film
Sie
in
die
the last couple of
Schauspieler
years.
gefunden?
So that
Also
is
was waren
a
Ihre
different aspect.
Entscheidungen
And then
für
how
diese
did you
Schauspieler?
come
Waren die
across
so oder
these actors? How did
mussten
you
Sie absagen
choose the
und haben dann
actors?
welche noch
Or did
genommen
you
oder so weiter?
have a first choice and then actors declined your offer? And then how did you go about casting the crew?
I think there's 4 questions there, but I'll try to. I'll start at the end. The casting of the movie was, I had worked with Ethan Hawke before, and I talked to him about it just as an idea. We were in New York, and he agreed immediately to do it just because it sounded like so strange. He got this weird look on his face and said, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, sure. I mean, that's, yeah, you know. Ethan jumped in. And then I was thinking about who could play his ex-wife, who's the mom, and I had met Patricia once before, I think in the 90s, mid-90s. Talked to her for a little while then, but it was always a big fan, and I knew she had been a mom rather young in her life. And I just called her up, and we talked for a couple hours, I think. And so Patricia was the only one I ever thought of, and I called her up and said, you know, what are you going to be doing 12 years from now? You know, I said, well, 12 years from now, I hope to be getting a film made. You'll probably be looking for a part. And, and here we are, you know, so she's very brave and, you know, kind of fearless that way. And that was the quality I was looking for. So that's, you know, the casting element. And then Ellar, of course, was a huge, you know, I met a lot of young boys. And you asked also about why the name Boyhood. It could have been, titles are difficult. Boyhood we sort of just fell into. It was the name on our call sheet every year. And we were calling it that. But we also called it like the 12-year film, and it was Boyhood. It's kind of the point of view of the movie. While it's really about a family, it's primarily from his point of view. So that was the name. But I met a lot of young, you know, 6- and 7-year-old kids at that time, and he seemed, you know, it's a huge leap. You know, like I said, his parents seemed very supportive. They're both artists, and I thought that would be the familial support to get us through. That was important. But he was just kind of an ethereal, thoughtful kid. I just liked talking to him, and he kind of grew up to be this really cool, thoughtful guy. So there were other ways to have gone. You know, if he would have grown up to be a 250-pound wrestler, the movie might have gone in that direction a little bit. But Lorelei was, you know, as my own daughter, at that age she seemed to be interested in it, but that ebbed and flowed over there. But I'm really proud of them. They worked so hard, the kids. They were so cool to work with, and we had a lot of fun, and they really went through something unique, you know, with this, and they continue to, but I couldn't be more thrilled with, you know, the young people, you know, the young adults they've become. You know, it's one of the great joys of my life to been close to this process, you know. Obviously a daughter I'm close to, but Ellar felt like my son that I'd never had, you know, so.
The rural side of, you know.
The rural, yeah, she asked about a rural part of America. Yeah, I mean, that was just kind of close to home. We live in Austin, Texas, which is central Texas, and, you know, that's my own background, you know, and you don't often see that viewpoint, you know, small towns, big towns, a lot of driving around, and, you know, that was just kind of it mirrors a lot of people's lives. You know, most of our country is rural. You know, there's a handful of big cities, but most people grow up in that kind of fashion, I would think, statistically.
So please, there's a lot of questioning going on, so would you please mind not more than 1 or 2 questions to our guests, please?
Okay, my name is Mahar Sigil, African Refugee News. Just one thing, you said low budget, I say big film. The question is for the director. Can you tell us more about the camera work? Because during the film, you see the difference when you take the boy, you always take the eyes, and when you take the girl, you see the changing of her life with the fashion, with the color of the hair. So can you tell us more how you work on it? And Arquette, can you tell us more about the mother? Because she was playing a big role there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I knew the changes, these weren't really scripted, they were just sort of felt. You know, I knew the film would reflect passing of time, but it wasn't conscious to emphasize any one thing too much. The main change was just their maturing, everyone getting a little older, so I wasn't trying to hit the cultural moments too much, but I just knew them growing would say a lot. You know, I don't think really the culture, surprisingly, hasn't really changed that much, I feel, here at the end. Because if you really look at it, if I would have looked at my own life chronologically, like say this film started in 1969 and ended in 1981, you would have a lot of different cultural looks. The cars look different, the hair, the styles, you'd get this. But I think maybe in the current day, the technological change is so great that that's where we're putting psychically most of our changes. Because the culture, you know, we shot on 35 millimeter. I wanted the film to look very consistently the same. So I didn't want to have different looks to demarcate the years. So we shot on film for that reason. But I figured the culture would change a little bit. But, you know, that was outside of our control, obviously. But so it just shows up kind of randomly, naturally, I guess, in the film. I don't know if that totally answers your question. But
no. Yeah, later on, maybe. Was the second part was for you?
Yes. Well, my character, you know, when I first spoke to Rick, and he had a very clear skeleton for the piece, the project, and the character, and what the mom was going through, but then we would work every year sort of where the kids were at, and sometimes he would say, well, Ellar's a little ahead of Mason, so we have to pull them back. The kids are a little cooler than their characters are, so we're going to retard them a little bit. And also the mom's character was really an amalgamation of a lot of different people's experience. Kathleen would throw in her opinion, and Ethan, and we'd all talk about our experiences, or my mom, or Rick, and we would just together make these decisions. And a lot of them were really different than my own self, the way I responded, like when my son went off to college. But they were all based on someone's real experience or inspired by something authentic. And I think a lot of our life, we do have these blinders on. And like I said before, this mother was really impacted by Mason Sr. leaving and feeling like she got left with the responsibility, and she really resented him. But so much so that she had such blinders on, she never got to see what a great dad he was, or all the other things he brought, because she'd put him now in a box and he'd put her in a box. And that's sort of one of the things that really resonated with me after seeing the movie, was how much I do that myself, and how much we all do that, how limited we are in our own perspective of each other and our past experience and what it really was.
Okay, a question over there, please. On the right side.
My name is Véronique Blin, Intercinéste Paris, France. My question goes both to Mr. Linklater and Mrs. Patricia Arquette. Was it a deal from the very beginning that you should follow those two kids growing up? Because in the meantime, you also, both of you, spent 12 years doing some other things, shooting other films for you, Patricia, maybe making other projects for you, Mr. Linklater. How could you, was it a deal at the very beginning that you should be ready, Patricia, whatever happens, to follow those kids for 12 years? And were you aware of the fact that you should have to follow them as well as a director? There was never any complaint from them, or maybe they wanted to stop because they grew up, but you were growing up too. You spent 12 years.
Well, we sort of jumped into this all together, knowing our lives would go through a lot of changes. I mean, Patricia had a kid between the first and second.
I got married and divorced.
Yeah. I had 2 more children
People
during
had
this
cancer,
film.
people buried parents.
Ethan had 2 more kids. So, you know, our lives, a lot of this is a portrait of the kids growing up, but it's also adults kind of bumbling through parenthood. And so that's kind of what it was about also. So but we were committed. We were committed to our cast, you know, to Ellar and Lorelei. And
it was exciting. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, I really looked forward to it every year. It felt like a top secret, real, true artistic project that I got to work on with people that I loved and considered really close, dear friends, and I enjoyed my time with them, and I missed them, and I was excited to see them. And so it was a pleasure. Really, the hardest part for me was last year when it was winding down, and I said, I don't want to give this movie the world. I already love this movie. I love these people. I love these kids in this movie and this whole experience. And I don't want to hear anyone else's opinion if they think it's good or boring or stupid. I don't care what their opinion is. And that was the part that I was wrestling with, I guess.
yeah, we've all had our own little separation, I think.
But maybe this is a question also interesting for Lorelei and Ellar, seeing Patricia and Richard growing up in these 12 years.
Seeing us get old.
Cool. Can you add to that something?
Have we changed? That's the question, yeah.
Well, the changes between those ages are not as like
Drastic.
evidently drastic as our ages.
Yeah, that's the
Something I will say is someone asked Rick earlier what he learned about being a father from the film, and it made me realize that I think I learned a lot about being a son from working on this film, and a lot about my relationship with my mother, who is not here, but she's watching from Sony Square. And but especially in the later years, just the kind of vulnerability of Olivia, and especially watching back on it and just helping to write those scenes really, I think, taught me a lot about my relationship with my mom and how important it is.
Question in the middle, please. Yeah.
David Denk, Taz, die Tageszeitung. 2 short questions. One for Mrs. Linklater. How does it feel being dragged into movie business by your own dad? And the other one goes to Patricia, Arquette. Yeah, how would you describe the relationship to your film children today?
Well, I wouldn't use the word dragged. I was very, very interested in acting as a kid, so it was more of a favor.
What 8 and 9-year-old girl isn't bopping around singing, dancing, acting? You were very extroverted. At some point, Lorelei decided she was a visual artist. She's a painter and sculptor, and she's, I don't know.
But it's not a negative thing.
Yeah.
It's good. I feel very lucky to have been part of this project.
What was the second part?
What I felt about these kids now. I feel really blown away by both of them. I mean, they were sweet and kind of magical kids to begin with, like Rick had cast. Even though Lorelei was his daughter, she was also magical. Like that little language she makes, that's her own. She had invented her own language. And so Rick incorporated that. And Lorelei was, Ellar was like daydreamy and poetic and spacing out and beautiful and staring at things and his own thing. But they grew up to really be these unique adults who have incredible values, morals, artistic interpretations of the world, and are incredible human beings and personal ethics. And I'm really blown away by them as artists and as human beings. And I feel like I've learned a lot from them, their purity, and I wish I could have been as incredible as they both are.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Your question, please.
Ehsan Jafari, Iranian German journalist. Mr. Linklater, thank you very much for a fantastic film, for allem, because a very lovely, poetic film I have seen ever from you in the last 5-6 years. You have already behind our philosophical and what all the time life could be. Just have other view of social view on American life today, the last decade especially, I mean, after 2002. So what was the special message on that? For example, the election, presidential election 2008 in the United States, and what came after that, it was almost the same time with a financial crisis in America. And we are just seeing the middle class as going down, and the example of the lady which acted from Patricia shows very well that nobody can survive just. What was the special message on that? Thank you.
Is that about? I don't know if I fully understand I knew the social backdrop to whatever was going on politically, or I tried to capture how you remember it as a kid. Like when I was a kid, I remember the presidential elections. I remember big things in the culture, but really you're so absorbed in your own world, what's in front of you. But I remember putting some thought into, a kid would definitely remember the Obama election, for instance, especially the 08, so it was an idea to have them out campaigning. There's moments throughout there with the war in the background of your life, mentions of September 11th, just a little bit of that, just enough. And primarily, some of the bigger thoughts kind of seen through the parents. You pick up on your parents' politics, so I was just trying to mirror that. I don't think the film has any one specific message other than,
everything you're looking for is
12 years goes by. Time, we all get 12 years older.
But I do think that the middle class does often kind of shoulder the burden of the political establishment's choices, and this struggle is hard. And I remember at certain points we would talk about, I remember those gas lines with Jimmy Carter, and I remember the Iran hostage crisis, and remember these things were filtering through as a kid, and you were worried about, your parents were worried about bouncing checks was a big thing when I was a kid, I remember. We actually counted on.
Getting the electric
we will bounce a
off.
check now, but we will have some groceries. And we'll deal with that later.
Yeah, so it was really more of the struggle, the working class, the struggle of single parenting and, all that.
Question in the back, please. Yeah, could you stand up?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Shahin Riyaz Mahaluk, Media Southeast Asia. I would like to thank especially Cathleen Sutherland, the producer of the film, for such a wonderful film, for your struggle. While I was watching this film, I was also thinking it must be very risky to realize such a project. I'm sure there are a lot of projects, much more projects who are written and wish to be realized, but don't come to the screen. Could you please tell us about the experience of this whole process, this long process of financing, and how do you treat it?
Well, okay. So, we had a small budget, and we have really fantastic crew in Austin, Texas. And I have to say that with Rick being the director, people were willing to commit to it, to give their to give their time away a little bit more easily. And we had a lot of crew that stuck with the project, that repeated throughout the years. We had over 450 crew and post-production people over the course of 12 years. It's over, 4,000 man days. You don't really get that on a film. This is was a unique process in how we did it. But also, Rick is a real unique director, and working with him, I really enjoyed getting to work alongside him because he's a really great collaborator. He really collaborates with the cast. He collaborates with the crew. The process is, at least in this element, was very organic. And, if there were times, even as a producer, I said, well, we can't really do that. We don't really have the money to do that. Rick was on board with it. there was an organic flow to how everything went.
Yeah, everything about this movie was just different. You know, it's a very independent, low-budget film, but it was kind of epic. You know, we had like 143 scenes that we shot in ultimately 39 days. We had a huge crew for a small film. Everything about it was just unlike anything I've ever experienced. There's just no other way to put it, really.
Question here in the middle, please. Yeah.
Dankeschön. Ich kann mich nur
Thank you.
zu meinen Kollegen
I can only agree with what my colleagues have all said, and really congratulations on a marvelous film. It was really wonderful watching it. Thank you, Mr. Linklater, for this film.
Diese Botschaft von
This
Ihrem
message,
Film für mich war,
or to me, the
so,
message
man
was
sollte das Leben,
that
genießen,
that you should enjoy life as it comes, because life consists of steps like going to school, going to work, going to sleep, eating, drinking, nurturing oneself, and all the other things that happen on a daily basis. And very often you hear that when you ask people, how are you? People say, well, I'm kind of bored, everything's kind of the same, life is so uniform, but that is life. And I think that you really touched upon something important there, and therefore I really, first of all, and also I wanted to know, was that also your intention, your conscious intention to bring across that message? And the second question, the film was a low-budget film. Wouldn't it also have been better if you had worked with a kind of a normal set film, not in a 12-year period? Wasn't that in the end even more expensive, or didn't that add to the cost, given that very long period of shooting?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Your observation about the small moments of life, because that's really the last line in the movie that Ellar says. It's funny, but it's true. You know, that it's always right now. I mean, that's kind of a message we all go through our lives struggling with. And I remember being a young person, everything you get from the culture and parents and everybody is really about your future. No one really says, I mean, childhood's to be enjoyed, but you're being groomed for something else that you don't even know what it is. Just your future, being who you should be at some future moment. So I remember that kind of thing, well, this is life right now, you know, every moment. At some point you're supposed to start living your life and not just, you know, it's an interesting process, just being alive and being conscious of it is kind of a ongoing lifetime, you know, struggle, I guess you could say, or, you know, that is the issue, maybe. So, and your question about, there's nothing I think would have been different if this was a bigger budget film. It was the right budget and the right working methodology to make this movie. If a studio would have given us more money or something, it would be the same, more or less the same movie, I think.
Or did you mean that?
Is that what you meant?
Well, at first I thought that's what she meant, but then I think at the end she said, didn't it make it more expensive because you shot it over 12 years and that many man days? And in a weird way,
it's an impractical. Yeah, there's so much time put in preparation. Usually you prep a movie and then you shoot the movie. Well, every year we had to prep for weeks like it was a big movie, and yet we were just shooting for three days or so. So you have to cast, you have to do location scouts, you got to get permits, you got to do all this stuff. So we did all that 12 times instead of once.
And you're editing.
Casting, editing. So ultimately we spend about 2 years in pre-production and 2 years in post-production for this movie. So I would say I average several months a year on it. So it's a lot more than you would spend on a usual indie. But, you know, like you said earlier, we were doing other things too. I was lucky to get a lot of other films made during this time period. And, you know, everybody was busy with other things. So it was working this into our lives. So.
I just want to say that, you know, Rick always just was clear about his vision, about making it happen and calmly making it happen and bringing everyone's schedule together. And he was really masterminding this and with a very calm focus on what it was going to be. And putting in all that time, months and months of time, which, you know, there's no way he could be financially repaid for that, really, the amount of work that he put in.
Your question, please.
Hello, Klaus Grünberg. I have a question to the director concerning the work progress. You said everything was scripted and rehearsed, but I remind the sentence of the Ethan Hawke character. He says, we are all improvising. So how much improvising was there in the script, and how much were the actors able to bring their thoughts into the script? For instance, did you respond to their personal interest? For instance, the whole photographic thing. Is Ellar really fond of photos, or does he actually hate making photos?
I started taking pictures before Mason did.
You better tell about your website now so I can buy some of your pictures because they're really good.
Yeah, I was wondering what art form Ellar would pick. His father's a musician, so I would have predicted at age 6 or 7 that he would have ended up a musician, but he's more of a visual artist who's, you know, he's doing photography and other artwork. So I was going to incorporate everyone's life to whatever degree into the, I always worked like that though. I mean, there's ideas, but we would often, just the night before, take just the structure of a scene or what we were hoping to accomplish and work up the exact dialogue. Because sometimes it's not the script is really the ideas more than it is the exact dialogue. If it just needed to be kind of real, you can work that up sometimes rather quickly. But so it was scripted. We weren't turning on a camera and people just seeing what happened. I've never done that, but you know, it was very, very collaborative. You know, Ethan would come in with a lot of ideas, and you know, we would work on it over the year too. I would tell Ellar, it's like, next year you're going to have a scene with this girl you have a crush on. You're meeting at, you know, so we knew that was coming up. But I told him to write down every conversation he had, like at the end of the night, write down what you were actually saying in those conversations. So, because the goal was to have an authentic dialogue about, it's not some old person remembering what teenagers talk like, but kind of closer to what they're really talking like. That's what I'm going for anyway. And the best way to do that is through the actors themselves and to work that into the process. So it was like that the whole time. I mean, we were collaborating when they were very young too, and it just got more and more involved as they matured. But by the end, about
was
halfway
really cute
through,
collaborating when they were little.
Yeah.
Like we did this little mural on their bedroom walls, and they were deciding what they wanted painted on it. And
yeah, it was always like that. But it would only work or feel authentic if it felt like it came from, you know, the actors themselves, I think. So that was the goal.
So, final question for today. On the right side, please.
Okay, what a responsibility. Michael Stadler from the Münchner Abendzeitung. It corresponds a little bit my question to the question before. When you looked at the material to the director, the question, when you looked at the material in the end, did you realize some changes in your directorial style? Or maybe also during filming? And did you have sometimes regrets because you were not able to reshoot scenes because your actors grew older?
No, we didn't have the luxury of doing any reshoots ever. But we did loop lines, you know, for dialogue. If the dialogue, we pulled the actors in every year or two, the young actors, and got their voices. If it felt like we were making that decision every year. But as far as my own maturity, I mean, I kind of set the visual tone the first year and tried to stick to it. But that was pretty easy because I haven't really developed much as a filmmaker. You know, I feel kind of the same. I'm sort of stuck with myself. So I get asked that question on the before movies. Like how I was like, well, that's kind of how it feels right. So I don't know.
You did say something interesting to me though about, like, even last year you went back and were re-editing.
Oh yeah, the luxury to re-edit.
Year,
I mean, to spend 12 years editing a film. I mean, I'm not going to get that again. So I was going back to the early episodes. You know, we would shoot and edit that year and then attach it to everything before. Watch everything, edit that, attach the next year, watch it all, edit the whole thing again. So by the time we got to the end, it was really just putting on. We shot the last bit just in October. And so we just put that on and then edited the whole thing. But I was still making changes like year 2, I think. I was changed out something, but there's very little that got cut out completely. Little bits, but it's pretty much as we worked it. But I never regret it. I never said, oh, I wish I could reshoot something. It just, you have to be very accepting of what it is, kind of like we are in our lives. You know, we're very accepting of ourselves, hopefully, and what's around us. And you just work with the reality in front of you. So you just got to work really hard at that moment to try to make it work the way you want to. So, you know, it was a continual challenge, but it was a lot of fun, you know.
Yeah. And we're happy that this continual challenge brought you after 12 years progress to
really
Berlin,
to be
to the
showing it
festival.
here,
It's very happy to have you here. Thanks, Cathleen. Thanks, Ellar. Thanks, Patricia, Lorelei, Richard. Good to have you here in Berlin.
Yeah, thank you again.